Today's topic is grow inward, not outward. Now, we talked a lot about why we want to move from a goals mindset to a growth mindset. And this comes directly from John C. Maxwell's Leadershift book. And so he talks about why we want to adopt a growth mindset. But the question is, well, what sort of growth do we want, and how do we get away from that goals mindset? Well, he talks about changing from a growth, from thinking about growth outward as opposed to grow as a person, as opposed to growing for some external reason. So what is a growth outward? Let's define our terms. First of all, growth outward might have two components. The first might be that you're motivated by someone else who expects something from you. So, example of that would be, if you're a child, maybe, a parent would motivate you. A teacher might motivate you to get a certain percentage on a test. The grades might motivate you, for example. And if you grow in those areas, if you're pleasing your parents, you're pleasing your teachers, maybe your boss, that's really a growth outward. The other sense of that is, again, the goals mindset, where you're trying to make some external goal because we think that external production will increase an internal motivation. So if you have all sorts of external goals, so if you have a weight loss goal, or you have a money goal, for example, and you think, well, if I have those goals and I have something to go at, then I certainly would be able to motivate myself to get there. The problem is what happens when you reach those goals. So when you reach a weight loss goal, for example, or you reach a money goal. Let's just say you want to make, I don't know, $300,000 in a year, whatever your goal is, or you want to have a certain net worth. Well, the question is, where do you go from there? Do you just continue increasing your goals and somehow hope that your motivation is going to stay the same? Or are you going to lose some of that motivation? And so the question, what John C. Maxwell talks about in this book is that it's really never enough. It's never enough to meet a goal. It's never enough because there's always going to be something more, right? There's always going to be something more. And so what you want to have is, instead of trying to grow outward towards something, towards a goal, towards apparent motivation, maybe think instead about growing inward. And this is a quote from John Maxwell. He says that growth on the inside fuels growth on the outside, and not the other way around. So in other words, if you have an internal motivation first, if you work on who you are as a person, as opposed to trying to develop some sort of external skill set to reach a certain goal or reach a number of goals, then you're going to continue to have that internal motivation to be successful and to take you wherever you want to go. And so it's a distinct mindset shift that he's asking us to take. And I think it dovetails very well with what I talk about sort of on the emotional intelligence end, because very oftentimes there is no way to place a goal on emotional intelligence. For example, one of the things that we're going to be talking about in our emotional intelligence book club coming up soon is stress reduction, and that's a big problem that attorneys are facing currently. I mean, really forever, right? But really it's really been something that people have focused on recently because of the wellness movement, but also because people have recognized, well, there's been a lot of instances of attorney suicide, of attorneys, really having a lot of problems. And so what can we do about it? And one way is to reduce stress, and that's an emotional intelligence skill. But really, how do you place a goal on, well, I'm going to have less stress in my life? Because every attorney has stress. It's just part of the job. There's some adversary relationship somewhere, either if you're in litigation or you're in a transactional deal, even if you're doing a house closing or you're doing a will, there's always someone on the other side of the table who maybe if they're not an adversary, they certainly want something from you, that you're going to have to do. And so there is going to be a little bit of stress no matter what your practice area, no matter what your practice setting. So the question is, how do you reduce that stress? And there's a lot of ways to go about that. And I will, when we start that book club up once again, I'll be able to, we'll be able to learn about those techniques together. But at the end of the day, what we're looking for is progress. We're looking for growth. We're looking for growth on the inside. It's not going to be some external, yes, I'm trying to meet the goal of being 50% less stressed. That's not a goal that anyone can achieve, because you can't really, there may be some sort of, hook me up to a machine, look at my heart rate and that sort of thing. And, maybe you could figure out, stress levels, but on a day-to-day basis, normal people can't really do that unless they're like married to a doctor, or, they're in some sort of project, scientific experiment that sort of tracks that sort of thing. But normal people don't have that, right? And so what we want to think about is, how do we grow on the inside, to have that internal motivation, to have the, if it's stress reduction, for example, that's one of the things we want to focus in on the inside. How do we reduce the stress on the inside? So what comes out externally is something better, either for our clients, for our friends, for people that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So because when we're less stressed, our response is much different than when we are stressed, right? And so these are some of the things we want to think about going forward. And what we're going to talk about throughout this Leadershift book is having a personal development goal of growth on the inside, as opposed to dealing with some sort of outward motivation or outward goal that we're trying to achieve. All right, so I'm going to leave it right there. I'll pick it up again tomorrow. If you have any comments about this episode, love to hear them. This post usually goes live on facebook.com/attorneydsy. I'm on all social media platforms at attorneydsy. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, please make sure that you comment on one of those social media platforms. If you need an attorney or certainly need to refer a case, my phone number is 312-239-9722. Email is dscriven-young at pecklaw, PECKLAW.com. Remember to fight for the lifestyle that you want, become that rainmaker that you need to be. Take care, everybody.